When I was in the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses, Watchtower used to tell me that I should not focus on my career, making money, should avoid things like overtime unless absolutely necessary. Definitely don't take a job that makes you miss meetings. Definitely do not allow your employer to have you miss conventions because there's an important project. Don't take a promotion if it means it takes time away from the ministry work. All these things. And it took me until after I left to realize exactly why the Watchtower would tell me these things. You ready? Let's get into it. You may have noticed that my background is different and that I haven't posted for about a week. Maybe you noticed that, maybe you didn't care. It's not important. The important thing is I'm not at home. I'm actually on a training trip out of state because I got a different job. A job that pays more, a job that has better benefits, more holidays, all those kinds of things. So of course, when I was offered that, I jumped at the opportunity. Now, when I was a witness, I would have had to prayerfully consider whether or not taking a job that benefited me and my family was also going to benefit the Watchtower. But that's never how they would put it. Let me explain what I mean. A normal Christian, someone who just reads the Bible and decides based on what it says what they should do, would use the Bible to make decisions about what they think is right. Now, they might read in the gospel how Jesus focused his time, effort on the ministry and how he said to store up treasures in heaven and not on earth, those kinds of things. How he devoted time to helping the homeless, charitable works, the poor, the sick, whatever. And based on that, a Christian might decide that, well, I shouldn't put as much time into my secular work because I want to focus on these spiritual matters. And that would be perfectly acceptable. However, they might also read about very wealthy, very spiritual people in the Bible. In the New Testament, you've got, for example, Lydia, the seller of purple, that Watchtower never ceased to remind us must have been quite wealthy because selling purple was a very extravagant work to be in at the time because purple was extremely expensive. Purple cloth, extremely expensive. Or you may have read about other people in the Bible, such as Nicodemus, who was, granted, he was kind of in the shadows as a Christian, but he was a wealthy person. And then you've got the woman who poured the very expensive oil on Jesus' head. And Jesus told his apostles to stop griping about that, even though it was worth a year's income. That oil was worth a year's income that she put on his head because she had done a fine thing. Now imagine a perfume or something like that, a cologne that cost you the equivalent of 1 year worth of your wages, your salary. That's incredibly expensive. So we're talking about a very wealthy home, a woman married to a very wealthy person, and yet was clearly a servant of God because Jesus said what she had done would be remembered forevermore. And sure enough, there it was in the Gospels. And if you go back into the Old Testament, you see very wealthy, very faithful people like Boaz, who married Ruth and eventually became one of the ancestors of Jesus Christ, was called a very wealthy man in the Bible. You've got Solomon, who was the richest king of all the kings in Israel, whose heart was not turned away from God by wealth. It doesn't talk about that, but by all the women that he married and the concubines he had who weren't servants of God, and so they led his heart astray. So if you're just a Christian and you're reading the Bible and drawing conclusions from it, it's a mixed bag of pros and cons, good things, bad things, balance about what you should do when it comes to earning a living, making money, where your focus should be. And even Solomon himself, as wealthy as he was, wrote in Ecclesiastes that it's all vanity and the striving after wind. And yet he balances it with saying that there's nothing better than for a man to eat and drink and see good for all his hard work, for it is the gift of God. So balance is really the flavor you get when you read the Bible. But Jehovah's Witnesses don't do that. Don't get me wrong. They read the Bible. They do read the Bible. and they see what it says. But when it comes time to make a decision, they don't just look at the pages they've read in the Bible. No. They go look up what the Watchtower tells them to do based on the scriptures that the Watchtower quotes. And of course, the Watchtower predominantly emphasizes how you should not be chasing after any kind of material things at all, and how you should be sacrificing for Jehovah, which is actually code for the Watchtower. Here's how you know it's code for the Watchtower. If you're a Christian, you're just reading the Bible, and based on what you read there, you're making a decision, then if you believe that God wrote the Bible through inspiration or however, you can argue that you're a servant of God, doing what God wants you to do through the pages of His inspired word. But if you go to make a decision and you close that Bible and you go look up on JW.org what the Watchtower says you should do under those circumstances, are you serving God? Or are you serving the Watchtower? The answer is obvious when you look at it that way. You're not serving God when you're one of Jehovah's Witnesses. You are a slave to the Watchtower. You're doing what the Watchtower has told you to do. You're following the standards they have emphasized and often enforce, because if you don't do things their way, you're looked down upon, you're looked as spiritually weak, people avoid you, you might get soft shunned. And if you put too much time into focusing on yourself, your family, your material needs, well, just don't expect any kind of privileges, don't expect a good standing in the kingdom hall or in the congregation at all. You're just not going to have it. Thereby, you are not a servant of God, able to make your own choices based on the myriad of examples across the board found in the Bible. You're a servant of the Watchtower, doing what the Watchtower has told you to do. The problem with that is that Watchtower flip-flops on what it thinks all the time. Though in this one particular case, they never really have, at least not in my time in. They've always emphasized, don't look for promotions, don't look for material gain, no matter how good it is for you and your family. Always put God's kingdom first, which means put what Watchtower wants you to do for them for free first. That has been quite constant for as long as I have known. And after I left, I found this a very strange thing for Watchtower to do, because if you look at other religious groups, like take Mormons, for example, the Latter-day Saints, they very much emphasize getting an education, even if going to one of their colleges, making lots of money, and tithing back to the church so that the church can benefit from the large income that you're building up for yourself. And other religions do the same kind of thing too. But the Watchtower, from its inception, has always been the opposite. Don't look to higher education. Don't look to material gain. The end of the world is coming. If you're focused on all these material things, what's the point in that? You're investing money into a broken system that's going to go away soon, but then it never went away. Watchtower has so many predictions about what when the end was supposed to come. 1914, 25, 41, 51, 75, into the 20th century, soon, before this generation passes away, from 1914 and on and on. And I'm often wondering, and this is just me speculating, did the people who wrote the Watchtower, as awful as they were, if you look back at the stuff they used to teach, in some way, did they really believe? The leaders must have really believed that the end was coming, at least some of them. Because if they didn't, then they would have emphasized Jehovah's Witnesses, their servants, making money so that they could pour that money back into the religion. But they never did that. They always just looked to the servants, their servants, the witnesses, working for them for free with no pay for their labors. Maybe they thought that they were going to get just as much payback from that. But that's not very well thought out. It's really not, because one person who starts a business can earn the income of dozens or even hundreds of people if the business is successful, and they could pour all that, or a big chunk of that, back into the religion. And that's why a lot of conservative religions tithe, so they can get that money. But one person can only do so much manual labor that's only worth so much money, that doesn't come anywhere close to how much that tithing, that donating would give if they ran a successful business or were very prosperous in their work. So whatever reasoning the Watchtowers used over the years for why they emphasize not putting material things first, they've only hurt themselves because the end has not come. They're having financial problems right now. Now, they have built a lot of real estate, so they have a big real estate empire, but they clearly seem to be having donation issues over the last, how long? Probably 10 years? Donation issues, money issues. There's more going out than there is coming in, as Stephen Letts said in that famous JW Broadcasting episode a few years back. It just seems very short-sighted, unless maybe they really believed the end was coming until the mid-90s when this generation totally passed away, and all of a sudden they're panicking. What do we do now? And the script seems to have flipped. Late 90s is probably closer. That's when things seem to really change. And I remember my brother and I complaining at each other about how infantile the Watchtower had become, about how none of the information was interesting or exciting anymore. It just got so basic and so uninspiring, which, because they're not inspired, which they admit themselves, that's just understandable that it would become that way. But I'm here, free of the Watchtower, no longer their slave, as opposed to being a slave of God, doing better for myself and for my family. And that's one of the wonderful things about being out and being free that you have to look forward to. If you're a PMO and you're sticking around just to try to hang on to your family, understand, one, your family's going to drop you like a rock as soon as they find out that you don't believe. And two, all the time you spend hanging around trying to latch on to something that really doesn't belong to you anymore, because if they loved you, they wouldn't shun you. At least if they loved you more than they loved the old men in the Watchtower, they wouldn't shun you. All that time you're spending doing that, you're not building up your future, because, as is readily apparent, the end is not coming anytime soon. At least not in the way that they claimed. And so you really should be building up for yourself. You really should be doing for yourself. Unless through your own study of the Bible, what you read, what you believe God has called you to do, that is not your path. In which case, I totally respect that. But don't read the Watchtower and do what they tell you to do, because they are going to tell you to do the things that are not good for you, but are good for them. That is their MO. That's what they've always done. Forsake yourself, forsake yourself, forsake yourself. Put kingdom interests, Watchtower's interests, first in your life. Don't fall for that. If you're PMO, you better be building up your own personal financial security now to the best of your ability. There's no such thing as true security in this world, that's for sure. But do the best you can for you and for your family, and don't listen to the Watchtower. And if you are PMO, just get out. Just get out as soon as you can. I know it's not easy, especially if you're financially dependent on people who are Jehovah's Witnesses. I understand that. Or if there's some very practical reason why you can't do that, I understand. But for everybody else, just get out. Get out, use whatever part of your life you have left to build good things for you and for the people you care about. Every day you're not doing that is another win for the Watchtower. And we do not want the Watchtower to win. Not over you, not at all. Well, that is what I have to say from my hotel room here during this training week and a half or so that I will be here. I hope you guys are doing well. I would love to know what you think, so be sure to leave a comment below. Don't forget to like this video, to subscribe to my channel, and to come back for more videos in the future. And as always, thanks for watching.